Well, I mean, investors, in our experience, they tend to follow kind of macroeconomic trends, and I think there was a developing, rather good story in Japan around both the reconstruction expenditure, something I forget what the figure is, 60-odd billion going into the economy, and then the Bank of Japan also doing quantitative easing and targeting inflation, and growth had notched up. At the same time, I think we saw the statistics in the property market. You've got vacancy peaking out and rents at a cyclical low. So there is really quite a good story developing in Japan. And I think investors were interested in Japan because of that. And the funds were operating, did gain some considerable interest from investors. It's been a bit more patchy recently, and I think Lawrence referred to something that he thought was going to happen but has actually happened, which is this 9.9% contraction of GDP in the third quarter, and Japan back into its, third recession in 6 years. That, I think, is probably shaking investors' confidence, and there's no surprise why that's happened. I mean, Japan's very sensitive to world trade. World trade is not exactly slumbering, but it's very low at the moment due to the Eurozone crisis and a few other things. And that, I think, there was a wave of enthusiasm from investors. I'm not saying that's gone away now, but I think the upsurge in risk in the global economy, particularly in Asia, has somewhat dampened the appetite. Personally, I think we personally see the longer term story is rather good, and the cyclical opportunity is rather good. But that contraction of GDP is a bit nerve-wracking, I would say, for ourselves and for investors as well.
Do you think that will create an opportunity at the moment where less bold people may be doing exactly that? But long term, you're still thinking that there's a positive story, and in terms of the cycle, that it's a good time now.
Well, the other thing that's going on, of course, is that the appreciation of the yen, which again, Japan, because it's a big, stable economy, 15% of the world economy. It's one of these economies that just attracts capital as a kind of safe haven destination. So that's pushed the yen up. So I think investors would probably want to be sitting around looking at just what the Bank of Japan is going to do for the yen over the sort of near term, because there is obviously an opportunity there, but the currency is hindering that opportunity a little bit, and we want to see. I think our sense is that investors probably want to see how that's going to play out a little bit first.
Yeah, I agree with what Richard said. I think, and it's very fickle. I think investor appetite, but there is a lot of momentum. You mentioned some of the funds that have been created, and that's so important because investors, they're more fickle maybe than the managers. Investors at times want destinations, but then are the funds there for them to invest in? And I think there's now more of an infrastructure of suitable funds, not the opportunistic funds, but the more core value add type funds that maybe are more suitable in the market. But I think investors are very fickle, given the outlook in not only in Japan economy, but also globally. In a period of uncertainty, investors tend to focus back more domestically, when actually there's a case for being more diversified. So there's a very strong case for being diversified, and Japan's got a very good diversification benefit, say for UK investors. I think it's 0.3 over the long term. So if you wanted to invest overseas for diversification, don't go to the US, but go to Japan for those diversification benefits. So I think there are I think maybe we come back to where we are in the cycle, because I think I'd be more sceptical about the rental outlook in the short term. I think there's some very compelling short-term attractive features like the spreads and other features. But I think over the long term, the attraction of Japan for UK-based investors is very compelling. And as I said at the beginning, now there's more of an infrastructure there for investors to invest in. But it's difficult to know how those investors will behave. Whether they'll follow their hearts will say, let's stay home, or their heads are, let's go and invest in a country like Japan.